Welcome, and thank you so much for tuning into our LinkedIn Live session today. Today, we're going to talk about the cost of downtime report and how observability can bring value to your business, but also help you strengthen resiliency. For the cost of downtime report, the Oxford Economics and Splunk conducted a research with 2,000 executives from the Global 2000. One of the key findings was that the cost of downtime actually averages 400 billion a year, which works out to be about 200 million per company and roughly 540,000 per hour. And this doesn't include the hidden cost. Now, the discussion today, we're going to explore together the causes of downtime, the impact it has to your business, and also ways on how to prevent this. My name is Alexandra Turbot, and I'm really excited to be joined by Patrick Pax, Head of Digital Solution Europe at Orange Business, and Stefan Estevez, EMEA Observability Market Advisor at Splunk. So, before we get into the details, and actually by way of introducing yourself, Patrick, would you mind sharing what insight of the report really stuck the most with you?
Yes, thank you, Alexandra, and thank you very much for inviting me to this discussion. And I'm very pleased to be here. So in terms of what we struck by reading the report, I think there's the first fact that you just mentioned, the 400 billion impact globally. So this is an astronomical amount. And then also if we look by organization, it's, I think, if I remember well, 200 million. So these are very, very big amounts. But what even struck me more is all the hidden costs. So indirect costs by which the companies are also impacted. And these include different aspects. For example, the impact on market capitalization. And this is typically due to the fact that, for example, the shareholders, they may lose trust in the companies when this type of downtime occurs. So the share value will go down. Another impact, which is also indirect, is typically the trust of the loyalty of the customers. So customers may move away from companies that are not that do experience this time of downtimes. And another comment from the report, which was also quite interesting, is the fact that according to the research company, there's a dual role of cybersecurity and IT infrastructure. So the learning here is that the outage or the downtime may be caused equally by cybersecurity issues or by infrastructure operation issues. And this is something new. I think that in the past, we mostly looked at cybersecurity, and now it appears that both cybersecurity and IT operations have got the same impact. And the last but not least, what I remember from the report is the human errors. And I think it was even stated as one of the most important causes of downtime. And this actually reminds us that automation is very important, training is very important, and also investments in these are very important, creating other costs. So in summary, so the financial impact, the hidden costs, the dual role of cybersecurity and infrastructure, and human errors are what I retain from the report, Alexandra.
Thank you so much. And again, great having you here. Stefan, what about yourself?
First, thank for having me as well. And I have to apologize because I'm French and Spanish, so that's my strange accent, and I might speak a little bit too fast, so you can slow me down if needed. But just to react on what Patrick said, what I found really unique about this report is the fact that, again, they're extending kind of the blast radius of downtime, because there are some other reports that talk about you're losing revenue and customers and so on. But this time, they asked the question not only to the tech execs, but also to CMOs, to CFOs, to find out what are the other, consequences. And for instance, they talk about overtime wages. And we all know that, for instance, when we go into the war room, that will cost you money. But there also the overtime wages for, the PR and communication people that needs to rebuild that trust in the brand that Patrick, for instance, you mentioned a little bit earlier, and that's what I find this report quite interesting. It's go way deeper and more holistic view of the real impact of downtime. And if we try to connect that with observability, it's just telling us that we shouldn't only focus on infrastructures and applications and cloud and stuff like that, which is the core of our digital assets, and that's why we want to make them digitally resilient, but also expand to other, to social media to get the sentiments and everything there, or maybe part of the user experience. Your customer is something in IoT. If you are a car manufacturer and you want to show when the car will be ready and so on. So have this more holistic view as well to different aspects and not purely centering into, the usual suspects. So that's what I really found really unique in this report.
Really good. And maybe let's drill down here a level deeper. So you both mentioned the hidden costs that go alongside the unplanned outages. So Stefan, do you mind sharing a concrete example where a customer had to deal with these hidden costs, and also what they were and how those were tackled?
Well, I mean, examples I cannot share the ones of our customers because that's private, but I can share one that's happened to me in the past because I used to run product management in MSPs and things like that. And we were monitoring the SLAs. I mean, all the assets we have and the SLAs because we have to pay penalties. But we didn't have that holistic view. And I remember a lot of years ago how data center were get a fiber cut by a caterpillar, somebody doing some works, and they carry on moving around and carry on working because it was done. And we think, no problem, we have a second access, and they get the second access. And then all the cascade of all the SLAs start happening and so on. So, and that's a classic. It was really spreading across all the penalties for everything because every single service was impacted because it was a root of the infrastructure that was down. But to resonate with the reports, then we had to divert a lot of the budget of the marketing to again reestablish ourselves as a brand because we were known as being a very serious MSP at that time. And that's why that report resonated with my personal experience. But I would like people also to think that it depends on every industry because we talk about downtime, but sometimes slow is the new down. There are businesses where it's all about milliseconds. I just make this example, but if you are working with Pokemon Go, a few milliseconds, you're losing the Pokemon you were looking, and it sounds like a game for us, but it's a business, and there's money associated to Nintendo and to the owners of the game. So every downtime means different things for different industries, and sometimes it's not just a blackout and an outage. It could be just a few milliseconds that you're losing, and that's impacting your users, as an example. I don't know, Patrick, if you have one on your side.
Yeah, sure. It's very, very interesting what you're saying, Stefan. So, for example, what I also remember from the report is that they're saying that the retail industry is particularly impacted by downtime. And I remember one example that we had with Orange Business several years ago, working with a retail company, which was known to be very robust. I mean, having very robust processes and being very reliable. And then one day they had, unfortunately, some downtime ahead of a very strong shopping period, so the peak shopping periods that happened before the holidays. And unfortunately, they had this downtime. And as a result, and I did, before this call here, I did a bit of research, they actually had a drop in their market value. And this was due to the trust that lost the shareholders. And typically, this is also something that was said in the report that you published. And then the second thing is that they got severely impacted because the payment systems, they went down. And because the payment systems went down, so both the e-commerce and the in-store payment systems didn't work anymore. So customers couldn't transact anymore. And in order to remediate for this, they asked all people that were working in the IT department, not all people, but many people in the IT department to step in and to help in resolving the underlying issues, to find the root causes and so on. So top priority of the company was on this. But as a consequence, again, this actually delayed the introduction of a new e-commerce feature that they were lacking during this peak holiday buying season. And then the other thing that also happens is that as a result, the customer loyalty dropped because customers who were used to this very rigorous buying process and so on, which was very reliable, suddenly they came across all these issues, and actually the repeated buying experiences diminished as a result. So less customers came back to the e-commerce site to do transactions. And when you got this type of impact, so shareholder value, loyalty, customer loyalty loss, and so on, that takes months, maybe years to rebuild. And this is, for me, one of the learnings. I mean, it's that the consequence of downtime can be very tough and last over several months or several years.
If I can add something, because it makes me think about an article I read a long time ago. But if you remember, long time ago, not that long time ago, Facebook had a big blackout, and WhatsApp and so on, all part of the Meta group. And I remember that it was 5% of the value of Meta that was down. And at the size of Meta, 5% is a lot of money. And years ago, I remember Amazon saying that 100 milliseconds latency means minus 1% in sales. 1% again at the Amazon level, that's a big number as well. So it just came back to in my mind.
Very good point. Thank you.
No, great examples. Probably switching gears a little bit, looking back to the report. So on the report, according to the report, more than 50% of tech executives actually complain about the expensive cost of war rooms. And more than 80% confirm that the need for a large amount of people to fix issues is really a problem. During the downtime, we see whole teams actually shifting from high value work, like innovating new products, delivering great customer experience, to helping resolve issues and actually fixing patches. So that's not a new problem, but why does it still exist? What's your view, Patrick?
Yeah, so I think with the development of the digital environments, complexity has heavily increased over the last years. So, I mean, nowadays, organizations are working with hybrid multi-cloud environments, working with more and more complex IT systems. And this has actually also, provoked this higher complexity also in resolving the issues whenever they happen. So more people have to be pulled together in order to go into war rooms, to look at the underlying reasons and so on, and to find the root cause. So that's one of the reasons. The second reason is also that given the organization of the companies, the way that IT departments are organized, you often have got different divisions for different areas. For example, one division looking after the network, another division looking after the applications, another division looking after e-commerce. It results that there are many silos in terms of tools, silos in terms of people. So whenever there is an issue happening, the monitoring systems that one team will use are not the same that the other teams will be working with, so that you never get a transversal view on the system on what is happening. And to remediate this, people have to be pulled together, work together, and analyze very manually the incidents that are being raised in the different monitoring systems, compare them, and so on. And that leads to high costs, of course. And as a consequence, I think that the consolidation of the tools is actually necessary in order to overcome those inefficiencies that we currently observe.
Just to react on what you were saying, I think, if you think the way we work today, we changed the way we created applications. We went from monoliths to microservices. We changed the way we consume all the resources to provide CPU, memory, and so on to the application. So we move from virtual machines to containers and so on. We move workloads into the cloud, and every single one needs a different tool, as you said, Patrick, to different view. And you end up in this situation in the war room. And there's a KPI I like, which is the mean time to innocence. It's not how fast I can find the solution, it's how fast I can prove it's somebody else's problem. And I've seen that. And in France, we used to call that the watermelon effect. We all look to our watermelon, it's green, but when you open it and look really deep inside, it's red. So that's a famous one in the French data centers. The fact that a lot of the errors are coming from humans is also the complexity of those tools to what you just said, Patrick, and the fact that there are more of those tools to understand more of these services and this more of everything that we have to deal with. And I think I remember the number. It was 42% of the respondents that really complained about the complexity of using the tools that are supposed to help them. That's why we see more and more conversations around tool consolidation. That's why more people are talking about platforms versus tools, because the data, you need the data. That's the observability role. You need the tool to analyze this data, but you need to have, as you said, the context between all these tools to understand really what's happened for the user, for the business, not specifically for that container or whatever. And maybe that's, if I try to read between the lines, the report, maybe that's why I've seen 64% of the tech executives expected gain from using AI assistants. So that if I connect the two, it's because of the complexity of the tool. You want now to chat with the technology, ask the technology the question and get the answer as fast as you can. Again, to not be in the meantime to innocence, but improve the meantime to repair and detect, basically.
Great point. And as you both mentioned tool consolidation, the report actually reveals that the global 2,000 companies invest an average of about $19.5 million per year on observability. Now, a bit of a provocative question. So would you say implementing observability is a must-have or a nice-to-have? Stéphane.
Well, let's be French for 1 minute. I think there's a lot of observability washing, right? A lot of people are just putting whatever they want behind the word of observability or rebranding monitoring, and then it looks cool. And now it's become observability. To be honest, observability, again, for me, it's a question of having all the data you need and get rid of the unknown unknowns. Again, we moved from on-prem to the cloud and microservices and so on. And we just find out that we didn't know when we moved that scale what was going on. And we have more outages, more issues. Data was missing. So observability is getting all the data at the right cadence so you can properly make the system observable, and then you can monitor and ask questions and provide analytics and whatever you need. So just that we share the same definition. For me, observability, again, it's now having this data and have the context between them. And the idea, again, is not to have an observability tool, but have a platform that have this capacity, in fact, to reduce the amount of tools you have. At the same time, you have access to all the data, and then you have the context, and then you can ask the question why this is happening, and avoid that it happen again. But to be honest, there'll always be a downtime. It's that's the nature of IT. What I think was interesting in the report is, okay, the CFOs in particular, for instance, they agreed to validate the budgets. So that's 19.5 million you mentioned to invest in observability. But what I think it was an encouraging number is that 84% of the CFOs have seen a good return on investment. Because again, when we really calculate the cost of downtime, that 19.5 million for Global 2000, it's nothing compared to the impact of the downtime. It's just 10%. If I remember, you mentioned 200 million on average per year. That's 10%. So I think it's a good return on investment.
Thank you. Patrick, how about yourself?
Yeah, very good. So, Stéphane, I fully agree with all what you said. It's I don't think it's nice to have. It's a must-have because it's something different than what we have known from the monitoring area. And what I want to say with this is that observability actually provides a different type of services than monitoring will provide. An example is when an incident occurs. What will happen with the monitoring tools? So you will get an alert after the incident happens. With observability, first of all, you get not only an alert when an incident happens on a tool, but you get an understanding of the entire IT system. I think that's very important. So you observe an entire system, an entire ecosystem, and you get to a level of understanding what is happening. So that's one big difference. The other difference is that it's related to those silos that we discussed before. We spoke about people silos, we spoke about tool silos. So with the observability approach, we actually go one level higher and we get this single pane of glass view. I also call it the holistic view of what is going on in the IT systems. And this is also actually worth the investment because you suddenly get an overview of everything what is going on, and you can analyze it. And there I get to my third point, which is about data decision making, or data driven decision making, sorry. And this is also very important, and it goes back to what Stefan says. So observability is also about getting access to all the data and being able to do all the necessary correlation, to do the necessary AI and ML in order to take informed decisions. If we as humans need to look across all those events coming from different monitoring systems and so on, it may take us hours or maybe days to understand what is going on. With AI, this can happen maybe in milliseconds or in seconds to come to the same conclusion. So that's very important.
Very good. So let's probably summarize a little bit. So we covered first that downtime, that the downtime radius goes far beyond the loss of revenue. We also discussed the human side is very often the main root cause of those downtimes, and that's why companies are investing in AI and tools to reduce actually the number of errors. There's one section in the report that we haven't addressed yet, and that's really the chapter that talks about the fact that resilient leaders manage to recover much faster from downtime than their peers. We are very proud that Orange Business and Splunk have a long-lasting and long-standing partnership, in particular in the area around security. But this partnership has now recently been far extended to the observability space as well. And we highlighted this in a joint ebook that we published earlier this year. So Patrick, maybe to you, can you explain what is the benefit for our customers in that partnership, and how in particular we help them on their digital journey into resiliency?
Yeah, very good. Yes, thank you for asking this question, Alexandra. So indeed, we extended this long partnership that we have to observability, and we are working now, we have been working for 2 years very closely on this topic, and the relationship is very, very fruitful. So what we decided to do is that we look into observability and AIOps. So AIOps may be a new terminology that I introduced here. So you all probably know that AIOps stands for AI for IT operations. So what we jointly with Splunk thought and decided is that by combining market-leading platforms such as the Splunk platform with ITSI, with our operational experience, we have a winning solution here. And the fact is that we as Orange Business, have been operating complex customer IT networks for many years. So this is nothing new for us. And we have been very experienced by using monitoring tools, whether it's for network monitoring, whether it's for application monitoring, or other types of IT areas. And so we decided to put this in place on AIOps, and we have also identified jointly 5 use cases that we repeatedly see across our customer base. So this includes, for example, event correlation. It includes prediction to take preventive actions, and it includes, for example, capacity management. And we have documented all this in the ebook that Alexander has just mentioned. Stefan, maybe would you have some comments on our partnership as well?
Yeah, but just before that, I just want to add something to the first part of your question, Alexandra. When you say about the fact that the leaders manage to recover faster, there is it's not directly on the report, but it's kind of related. There is another study that has been done by BCG, if I remember well, for a very long period of time on resilience in general. And what was really interesting is that they confirm what we've seen in this report, which is over 25 years, they study different companies, and they find out that when you prepare for resilience, basically you're not only reducing the impact, recover faster, but instead of getting back to normal, to state 0, instead of -1, you end up in +1. You're getting extra performance overall compared to your competitors. They took the example of Berkshire Hathaway. They have a lot of investment in insurance as an insurance company and so on. And this company was underperforming when there was blue skies. But during the crisis, different crises they have to deal with, and insurance is all about managing crisis. They were so good as well themselves as a resilient company that overall they were overperforming. And I think that's what we need to expect, and seeing resilience as a positive thing and not just getting back to normal. And that's why this investment is not just to protect, but also to gain something. That's what just I wanted to add. And in the partnership with Orange, I mean, Patrick, you perfectly explain it better even than myself. I mean, Splunk is a data platform that does security and observability. We know how to get the data and so on. The technology is there. And for instance, you mentioned AIOps. This exists for many years at Splunk. So our AI is trained, because not only about the algorithms, it's about the data to train them. That's the fuel of the engine. And the more they train, the more they're efficient they are. It's not about how many algorithms you have, but how efficient they are. So the technology is there to provide observability and security and so on. But what makes the partnership interesting is that Orange brings all this knowledge of the market and make that apply in the context of the industry they're talking to the customer, and make that generating that value, getting that +1, I would say. And that's the combination of the technology and the know-how, I would say, that creates this kind of partnership being quite interesting for our customers.
Great, thank you. And as a closing remark, if there's one piece of advice that you would give our listeners, what would that be, Patrick?
Yeah, I think on the way to the resilience, we all want to go that route to resilience. I think we need to be very pragmatic, start small, and then develop the observability solutions in an iterative manner. And why do I say this? Well, the reason is that observability is not an out-of-the-box solution. It is a journey that is also different for each organization. So it can start with advanced monitoring, going to visibility, then going to AIOps and observability. In Orange Business, we have even developed a methodology which we call the observability maturity assessment. So this is all about assessing where an organization is in terms of observability across the different divisions, and also to assess the roads that, or the journey that brings us to more resilience. So in summary, I would recommend that we need to consider observability as a journey. So be very pragmatic, start with something that brings most business value, and then iteratively develop that solution over time and get to that higher resilience state that we expect to be.
Thank you.
So in that case, if you explain the methodology, and so I will go in the technology side. So for me, the first step, and I will be techie for just a second. As you understood, it's all about the data, right? That's just observability strategy starts with getting the data, making the system observable. Even your AIOps strategy starts with data, because that's the fuel for the algorithms and so on. And I will try to be neutral. I will engage people to look at OpenTelemetry. That's an open source project, but it's now becoming really the de facto standard in the industry to collect all the data you need to make the system observables with one single open source agent. You have the full control of the data. You can anonymize it. You can decide where do you want to send it as a backend and so on. But that's, I would say, the first step. Make sure that you adopt the new standard to collecting the data. It will make your life way easier. And now you have a very good foundation to build on top a data platform, an observability platform, and build your technical stack, but starting with OpenTelemetry. That would be my first advice.
Thank you so much. So thank you very much for tuning in today's session. Patrick, Stefan, thank you so much for being with me today. If you want any further information, please make sure that you download the Cost of Downtime report, as well as the ebook on Splunk and Orange observability, and reach out with anything that you would like to hear more from us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.